So in this video, this happened in 1975. I had my daughter that May, and she was probably a month old, maybe 2 months, and we were living in Jerome, Idaho, down on 4th Avenue West. And I lived in a house that I had bought that only had 4 rooms. I was standing in the kitchen, peeling potatoes, thinking about what I was going to do that week. And all of a sudden I noticed a very warming sensation coming over my shoulders. And I stopped because it was so dramatic, it took my attention. And you know how in a dream when you hear something talk to you, but you do not see what it is, and you hear the sound in your mind? Well, this is what I heard in my mind. This voice said, "Don't be afraid. Clear your mind." And I did. I cleared my mind. I had my eyes closed. It said, "Put down the knife." The knife that I was peeling the potatoes with. I laid it down. Then it said, "Go check your baby." I immediately turned around. I walked out of the kitchen into the living room where my daughter was. She was in a playpen, and she was sleeping. I went over to the playpen, and I looked down at her, and I could see she was laying there on her tummy. She had her head turned to the side. Her mouth was slightly open, and she was sleeping. And I thought, well, she looks okay, so I'm going to go back and finish peeling my potatoes. I turned around, and I walked past the end of the playpen, started back to the kitchen, and that voice, it hit me again, and it said, "Stop. Turn around and check your baby again." And I did exactly as it told me. I walked back over, and I stood over her looking at her, and all of a sudden I heard kind of a funny buzzing sound. And I got down on my hands and knees, and I put my head down and I looked at her face. Well, her face looked okay, and right behind me was a television. And I could still hear that wheezing noise, and I kept a flashlight on my television. So I took that flashlight and I turned it on and I shined it at her face, and the light went back in her mouth. And I could see something blue in there. Well, immediately dropped that flashlight, and I turned her over, and I opened her mouth, and I could see there was something in her mouth. And I stuck my fingers down in her mouth, which kind of choked her, but I got a hold of it with my 2 fingers, and I was not going to let go because I knew if I did, she was going to choke to death. Excuse me. Well, when I pulled it out, at that time they had Pampers, and they had a little tab on them, and you pulled the blue tab off, and it was sticky, and you could close the diaper with the tab. Well, she had gotten some way that diaper tab in her mouth, and it had sucked back in the top of her mouth, and it was hanging down her throat. And at that time I knew that there was some kind of angel or spirit that had come to me and warned me of my little baby's impending doom. And that angel saved her life. And this is going to happen again in my lifetime. But right now, I'll let you go, and I'll tell you about that later.